Welcome to another 10th anniversary National Drum Fair interview, and it's my great pleasure to introduce one of my old teachers actually. I learnt many things from him, Malcolm Garrett. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Matt. It's great to see you.
Just going to ask you a few questions.
Yeah, sure.
Obviously, being our 10th anniversary,
yes.
How many shows have you attended?
Actually 9. Unfortunately, I had to miss one about 3 years ago because I was actually away working. So,
well,
but
no excuse.
There we are. Yeah, absolutely. I've been smacked on the hand for that. So.
Well, 9 shows. That's virtually as long as the committee.
Yes.
Has there been a memorable show that you've stands out?
They're all memorable.
Yeah.
In different ways. You know, there's been great workshops. Different stalls as well. You know, I mean, there's always something new. You know, I came here yesterday. Something absolutely brand new to see. There's different people to see. You know, and all that. So it's kind of, you know, it's like a metamorphosis really each year, which is great. You know, it's rather than same old faces. You know, so I think that's great. You know.
And how did you feel? Although you did a fantastic spot, and I enjoyed your brushes.
Thank you.
With the Fat Chops Big Band, how do you think that actually went down? Because that's the first thing we've actually brought on a big scale to the show. Did you think that worked?
I think, yeah, I genuinely thought that worked. You know, I mean, I think there's probably a few big band fans who came in who weren't necessarily drummers, who just came, you know, who sort of followed the band, and it's a great band, you know, as well. You know, it's great to play with them. You know, it's always. I used to do quite a few gigs with them when they first started off, you know, and obviously, you know, Neil does an absolute wonderful job.
Yeah.
Peter did an absolutely fantastic job, and I kind of kept my head above water, you know.
Oh, so. You're floating above the water there.
Well, I don't know.
Great. Well, what do you think the best thing is about the National Drum Fair then? What was the best thing about it?
Well, what other events are there like this? You know, I mean, full stop. There's a drum show down south, but that's really the new products, the new lines.
Very trade as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of, it's really dictated by the actual business side of drums. Where the National Drum Fair is really, it's for drummers, it's for drum collectors, it's for the anorak side of drummers, and it kind of, and it's also, it's not an ageist thing. Either you know, there's products for young lads just starting, but there's also for us oldies as well. You know, there's the historical side, everything. You know.
Great. Do you have any vintage custom gear yourself?
A little. No, I've got an old Slingland Radio King kit from the 40s, which I've had quite a few years. It's the old traditional marine pearl. Yeah. Nice. And a few odds and sods. So I've got an old American Rogers with a Woodshard Rogers Dynasonic snare, which are now quite collector's items. You know.
Right. So what are you playing on at the moment?
The majority of the time, I've got a Yamaha 9000. Which I had for quite a few years, which always sounds great. It's reliable, gets good sound. Whether it's acoustic, or if I'm mic'd up, I tend to do a lot of sort of theatre work and all that. Where often I'm sort of mic'd up, and there's always no problems there. It's always good. But there's so much good equipment now available from all manufacturers. You know.
Yes, choice, isn't it?
Yeah.
What's the best thing you've seen this year at the NDF?
Wow. Everything. I mean, great vintage display. It's fantastic seeing, drums that, the kits that were owned and used by drum legend, British drum legends like Kenny Clare, Ronnie Verrill, and Eric Delaney, and I mean that's amazing. Where else can you see those?
Exactly. Yeah.
Where else you can't? This is an event where you can see, you can touch, not play, but you can touch them and just really see those. They're historical instruments, and I mean for drummers who are kind of restoring old drums or maybe not so old drums, there's like everything, from the tiniest washer to shells, anything. I mean, where else can you go, Matt?
Well, exactly.
There
isn't.
I mean, you can go to other drum shows. You're not going to go. You're not going to
So,
go.
would that be one of the reasons that the NDF actually brings to its audience? Is there all those little bits and bobs and all those big things you can see from the history? Is that sort of?
I think so. I think so. Well, as I say, there's no other event which really has that.
Yeah.
And there's also the camaraderie with drummers. I mean, every time I come, each year I come here, it can take me half an hour just to kind of get inside the place, because I see all these drummers who I've known for like 100 years. And it's the only time I see them,
Yeah.
I mean, how many drummers do you have in a band?
Well, that's
One, yes. Poor Fat Chops had to suffer. Five of us yesterday, but no.
Is there anything you like to see, or if you've got any suggestions that you like to see at the drum fair at all?
I mean, my main concern is that it keeps going and it's supported. I think that's, the uppermost thing that people support this, people are aware of this.
Yeah, right. So, just going just a little bit aside of the fair, if you had to relive one gig or event, what would it be?
Oh wow, okay. That's a difficult one. You got to remember, I've been doing gigs for years. God, that's a surprise question. I've had some great gigs over the years, and sometimes not always, with great venues, just gigs which have gone really well. I do such a varied amount of gigs, from theatres. I used to do quite a little bit of recording, quite a bit of work for the BBC and ITV in years gone by, and I've played, I've done all the gigs that everybody else has done, weddings and all that. I mean, really, I just enjoy playing the drums. I mean, I've had 40 odd years of being paid to do my hobby, which is, I mean, that's fantastic. How many people can say they've got paid to do their hobby for that length of time? So I mean, really, I'm privileged to do any gig, So I mean, I enjoy, from sort of, I suppose, major league-ish type gigs to just a little jazz trio or something like that. So I've got no real special recollection.
No standout ones?
No. I mean,
you like to relive them all because they were so good.
Yeah, they've all got different things. They all brought different things, to me.
That's nice.
So,
that's nice.
Nothing special.
Now, I'm looking forward to this next question.
Yeah, okay.
Who was your inspiration?
What, from the beginning? Okay. Well, way back, I have to start when I was very young, and my father really, even though he didn't play any instrument, he loved American big bands, and and my mother too, and so between them, they used to buy quite a few of the old 78s. For those of my vintage and older, they know exactly what I'm on about, but this is post-vinyl, sorry, pre-vinyl, not post-vinyl, what am I saying? So, I used to hear as a child a lot of sort of bands like sort of Glenn Miller and those sort of people, World War II type bands and before, so okay. And I kind of heard Gene Krupa, and also I always remember seeing an old movie of it on television in the, I suppose it'd be the 1950s. Oh God, okay, yeah, in the early days of British television, and I can't remember which movie it is, but it's the one where he plays on all the piping in like the basement of a hotel. He goes right there, I mean, Gene Krupa was a magical person. He wasn't just a terrific drummer. He I mean, he's like, well, I mean, as you're probably aware, and I don't know, but I mean, he was the first dollar millionaire drummer, you know, and he was a household name. Everybody knew Gene Krupa, even if they didn't know anything about music.
He was the first celebrity drummer, wasn't he?
Absolutely, he brought the drummer from 16 musicians and a drummer to the featured soloist, So I mean, he was all drummers today. We should all be really singing Jim Krupa's praise, you know,
Yeah.
because it's really thanks to him. But yeah, I remember seeing and hearing that, and that was like really thrilling, you know, and all that. Then I started really listening to Jim Krupa. Then I kind of hooked on with Buddy Rich, you know, who was like, I mean, wow, you know, I mean, to this day, I've never seen anybody play the drums better.
Don't think you will.
No, I don't think so, you know, I mean, I'd love to think I would, but I've never seen anybody with that, you know. I've been very lucky. I've seen the majority of the world's greatest drummers for the past, certainly 30 years, you know, and I've never seen anybody play the drums any better than Buddy.
No.
You know, regardless of style. You know, he was just a total one-off, a unique person.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, so really, I mean, that's kind of you know, started my addiction to drums.
Right.
Really.
Can you just talk about how you sort of almost teamed up with Jim Chapin?
Yeah, of course, of course.
I think a lot of people like to hear this.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was really honoured, and I still sometimes can't believe today how well I knew, you know, that I became friends with the legendary Jim Chapin, and he was a legend. You know, you have to realise that. You know, I know he's kind of, you know, it's been 3 years since he passed away, but I mean, what he did for the instrument, really, and the actual mythology of playing the instrument, you know, is incredible. But yeah, I met Jim, I think about 1988, 89. I happened to be over at, sounds terrible, but I went over to one of the early percussive arts conventions in, I think it was Anaheim, in Disneyland, believe it or not, on the west coast of America, the original Disneyland there. And with Ian Palmer, who was a very young lad there. Then, you know, I mean, another terrific drummer, you know, of a whole lineage of drummers, you know, obviously Carl and Steve, you know, I mean, you know, legendary drum history. And Jim was there, you know, wow, this is Jim Chapin. And, you know, and sort of spoke to him, and he was so incredibly friendly, and just kind of, you know, within a few minutes of talking to him, it was like I'd known him all my life, you know. And but I mean, that wasn't like a unique reaction to me at all. He was like that with everybody, you know. He's an absolute gentleman. But you know, obviously he didn't see a lot of British people at that time over really visiting the Percussive Arts Convention, so he was quite interested, and believe it or not, Jim's great-grandmother was Scottish.
Oh, right.
Jim's middle name was Forbes, which is a Scottish name, and his grandmother was Scottish. And he said, oh, I'd love to go back to England. He said, I haven't been there since 1927. So when he was a child, he'd come over with his mother and grandmother. Right. To visit relatives in Scotland, and also they kind of done a tour of England. I said, well, I'll see if I can organise some workshops. Would you come in? He said, sure, we'd love to. You know, I kind of thought, well, you know, he's a real nice guy. This is never going to happen. And I said, well, look, I'll try and organise it. He said, oh, give me your phone number. I thought, oh yeah, you know, this is it. So anyway, about a week after I got back home after this, I had this phone call one evening. I always remember. He says, "Oh, Malcolm, this is Jim Chapin." I thought, oh no, this is, you know, I'm dreaming this. He said, look, I'm serious about if you can organise me maybe a week or two of sort of you know, like a tour masterclass and some lessons and all that. And I did, and that's where it started, you know. And it kind of he came over later in the year. Then really, right up until about 4 years before he passed away, he used to come over twice a year. I mean, I had the fantastic privilege of Jim Chapin staying with me for literally a month a year. Yeah. At least a month, sometimes slightly longer, you know, so
Stories.
Stories. I mean, you know, like most musicians, we're night owls, you know. So we were sort of up till sort of 5, 6 o'clock in the morning every day. But I mean, you know, I mean, it's still an incredible experience, you know. I kind of have to pinch myself that actually experienced that. You know, we just became really great friends.
Yeah.
You know.
And is that how, through him coming over,
yes.
you got the motor technique from
Yeah, that's right. Well, as I think most people are aware today that Jim was Moeller's star pupil. And Moeller, right until he passed away in the early 1960s, always said there's nobody understood more about the Moeller system than Jim Chapin and Sanford, or Gus. He's or short for Augustus. He was called Gus Moeller. Taught a lot of drummers, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, he's you know, quite a, well. I'll be talking a little about this in the workshop. I mean, there was really 3 prime American drum teachers of the first sort of half of the 20th century. That's Gus Moeller, George Lawrence Stone and Billy Gladstone.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, between them, there's a huge lot of similarities. But obviously there's differences. But I mean, between those 3 people, they're responsible for most of the drum legends, you know. Joe Morello was a student of George Lawrence Stone and Billy Gladstone. Yeah. And so loads of people, and their teachings are still so relevant today.
Oh,
you know? Possibly even more relevant because of the styles of music a lot of the young guys play, where they're playing really heavy.
Yeah.
You know, and to play really loud and quite forceful in a way. You know.
Yeah. Great. Well, is there any clean, funny stories you can tell us at all?
About what?
Anything.
Right. Turn off the camera.
This won't be edited.
No. Funny stories. Oh, wow. Jeez. I know quite a funny story. I mean, just talking about Moeller, I mean, he's quite an eccentric person, you know, and also, probably not a lot of people aware of this, but not only was he a terrific teacher, he made drums, snare drums. Some of which are still used by the American Army today. They're still there. You know, drums what he made like really at the, you know, in the early part of the 20th century, not 19th, 20th century. But the great thing about him building these drums was, if you ordered a drum from Moeller, before you took final possession, you had to play it for him. Yeah. And if he didn't think you were good enough, you didn't get the snare drum. And that used to happen, I believe, quite a lot. I mean, it's crazy. So it's kind of funny, you know. I mean, he's a crazy old man, you know. Another crazy thing, he was always campaigning to try and get drumming entered into the Olympic Games. Really? He used to write regular letters to the Olympic Games. He wanted it as a sport. As a sport. As well. And I mean, when he was in his 60s, I mean, to kind of sort of, he was very traditional American. He was very proud of the American heritage, the American rudimental, the American whole drum line, as it's called today. But obviously it wasn't called drum line, but the whole marching drum. When he was in his 60s, he marched from Madison Square Gardens, which is in New York, the lower end of New York, to Boston, playing in a full sort of Civil War outfit, playing snare drum all the way. I'm not sure how many 100 miles. It's a fair distance. It's probably about
a plane journey for them.
Yeah, it's a plane journey. Yeah. So that'll give you an idea. And that was a 60-plus-year-old man. So the crazy drummers, you know, aren't we all? So really, those are funny stories to me.
They're nice to hear. Nice, as well,
and they're true. They're true. Yeah. I mean, they are documented. You know, I'm not sort of fantasising about these. They're documented.
If you had a time machine, which era in drumming or music would you go back to?
I'd love to go back to the beginning of the swing era, when really the drum kit was developing. You know, I'd love to go and see
No.
You know, in the 30s. No, but I think in the 30s more.
When
the actual swing, when the big band swing era, you know, when you got people like Gene Krupa and Buddy and all those in their infancy.
Yeah.
I'd love to have been in New York and just sort of, because I mean that was unique.
Yeah.
I mean, big bands were the top 20.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, people queued for days like to go and see Benny Goodman's band with Gene Krupa, and I mean that must be. You know, fortunately, I spoke to as well as Jim, but other musicians from that era, and it just must have been so incredible. And I'd love to just spend it, you know, have a couple of days in a time machine, just go back, just experience some of that, you know. I'm really lucky that I've been able to speak to people who were in that era.
Because I suppose there's no documentation like today, but obviously all the internet and stuff like
exactly.
that. You can see these guys.
You can see.
It doesn't go back that far, though.
That's right. It doesn't go back. I mean, you can watch the old movies, and there's like, you know, you can spend all year on YouTube and looking at vintage movies. But as regards that kind of that whole vibe of how New York, I mean, you know, just one city in America, how New York was. You know. I'd love to go back to New York and for about 1939, say something like around there, you know, which was like a couple of years after the actual Big Bang, so it was like in its just before World War II started. I think that'd be fantastic.
Oh, nice. You can invite 4 guests, dead or alive, to a dinner party.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you know who's going to be there without me saying.
Yes.
Jim,
who would they be? Yeah. Who would they be?
Who would they be? Jim, Joe Morello, who I happen to get to know as well. Yeah, very lucky. I had a couple of lessons with Joe, and he's a beautiful guy. And obviously, you know, I mean, what can you say about Joe Morello? You know, one of the greatest drummers who lived. I was very fortunate. I met Buddy a few times, and I know we all tend to hear all the evil stories. I think if you worked for Buddy, if you were an employee of Buddy Rich, but socially, he was a very nice guy. I actually worked alongside him for a week in the 70s. I spoke to him loads. He was really nice. Really nice, you know. I mean, I was like, you can imagine how nervous, you know. I mean, even came and watched me play. So, you know, I mean, that's you know, that's a fantastic experience. Yeah. So maybe Buddy, you know. Well, I'm sure Buddy would be there.
So one more.
Gene Krupa. I'd have loved to have seen Gene Krupa, who kind of kicked it off for me. I'd love to have seen him. And everybody I know. I mean, Jim and Joe Morello were very close friends of Gene, and I've never heard anybody ever say a bad word about Gene. I mean, he was everybody said what a beautiful man he was, very, very gracious, an eternal student. I mean, he went back in the 60s when he kind of, you know, I mean, he was a kind of an elderly guy, he was an eternal student. He went back, he took lessons with Jim. He wanted to find out the stuff that Moeller had shown Jim rather than what Moeller had shown him. Because and also he had some lessons with Joe Morello. He wanted to learn about the Billy Gladstone thing and all that, you know, and that. So he's like an eternal student. As I say, everybody I've spoken to him who had any personal experience with Gene Krupa said, well, he was one of the most beautiful and humble men you'd ever meet. So there we are. I think those would be my 4 guests.
Well, that's
guests.
Titans as well.
Well, absolutely.
Just one thing, because I know from experience what a wonderful teacher you are. He hasn't paid me, honestly. But is there any advice to those who are actually starting out, and also, you know, people who've been playing for a long time, if they want to improve their playing? Is there any advice you can give? Yeah,
really. I mean, just try and evaluate yourself. If you're finding it difficult suddenly, you reach an age, or maybe not even reach that age, don't be afraid to ask. Go and have somebody, go and have a few lessons with somebody who you know and respect can do that. Don't be afraid to ask, you know, and try and just really practice is one of the main things. I mean, you know, it's one of the main deficient areas, unfortunately. You know, I mean, not just on drums, on all instruments, I think. You know, but it's just regular practice. Don't be frightened. I mean, drummers have this camaraderie, which really doesn't exist in any other instrument.
No, it doesn't. No,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't have a national guitar fair, would
No,
you?
no.
Or a national
You can
bassoon fair,
yeah.
you know. But I mean, sorry, I'm not being derogatory to others.
But there are other fairs you can go to for those kind of things. But yeah,
Yes.
but we know what you're saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Drummers have this sort of, I suppose, natural empathy with each other.
Mm.
We all know what we have to get
Yeah.
through, you know. And
I suppose because we are just one, aren't we?
that's
So,
right. That's
because
right.
all
We're
the other
basically on
instruments
our own.
play
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, in the majority, you know, if you're playing kit in a band, really, most of the time you're the shepherd.
Yeah.
You know, and the other guy. And I don't mean this in a derogatory sense at all, but really, if the drummer's not on the case, the band or whatever, how the ensemble or whatever, is not going to sound good.
So your advice is really ask.
Yeah,
If there's-
don't
if
be
there's
afraid
anything,
to
don't
ask.
be afraid to ask.
Absolutely, don't be afraid to. You
Mm.
know, all the drummers I know and I experience, you ask them things, they're only too willing to help you. You know,
I
we'll
suppose,
kind of know what you know.
I suppose when you were saying earlier, let's be like Gene and make sure we always try
Yes,
and try and improve ourselves.
try and improve.
But make
Yeah,
sure you
no
go see the
matter
right
whether
people.
you've been playing a couple of weeks
Yeah,
or 40 years.
yeah,
You know, I still practice. I'm you know, I want to be a better drummer in 6 months' time than I am now.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
You know, please.
yeah,
Yeah, I need all the help I can get.
yeah. Well, that's not the case, but
Yeah.
it's been an absolute pleasure. I've been
Yeah,
nice to
well,
see you here for
yeah,
a while,
Yeah,
and I'd just like to say, Malcolm Garrett, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's my honour.
yeah.
And
mine too.
Thank you so
Mine
much for
too.
being too.
Thanks for the drum fair. Thanks to all the guys. Matt, I mean, name everybody. Gary, Ken, and I mean
Simon,
everybody.
Mike, yeah.
It's yeah, absolutely, Simon and Mike. Yeah, I'm
Wow.
sorry, but you know, it's a wonderful event. Please support it. It's really imperative. You know, join the drumming community. Doesn't matter what style you're in. You know, whether you're in a heavy metal band or you're in a, you know,
Yeah.
trio or something.
Yeah.
Like that. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, we're all the same. Underneath,
Absolutely.
underneath, we're all the same.
Absolutely, we're all there.
So, thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again on another NDF interview. Goodbye.